Welcome to the latest Mascy and Moley. The last one, it's not the last one, but it's the last one to cover the NRL season anyway, Tony, isn't it? So, grand final. How was your grand final day? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did. I mean, we were all, this was the grand final we wanted, wasn't it? The Panthers and the Broncos. And all week I just had this fear that, everyone was building it up, saying it was going to be the grand final of the ages, myself included. And I just thought, maybe it won't live up to the hype. But, it did that and more. And some people are calling it the greatest grand final of all time. I don't quite know if it's deserved that billing, but certainly in the top three. And I actually tweeted with 20 minutes to go when Ezra Mam scored that amazing 10-minute hat trick. I said, "This is it, game over." And normally when I make a clanger like that, I pull it down. But I actually left it up there because I think I just said what the whole world was thinking. I mean, the Broncos were just all over Penrith. And all of a sudden, Nathan Cleary, who it must be said had a pretty quiet first 60 minutes, just came to life. The Broncos, their big men got tired. Adam Reynolds was a bit hurt, which I think has been overlooked in the criticism of him. He really got bent over badly in a tackle midway through that second half, and that was basically his last input in the game. But they kept him out there because he's such a vital cog in their machine. But Nathan Cleary, what can you say? Just an absolute superstar, and he delivered the three-peat.
I took the glasses off because I'm not going to be reading anything. So, and you're older than me and you're not wearing any, so that intimidates me. But I'm going to do love-hate straight off the bat. People saying this is the greatest grand final of all time. I hate it, and I hate it almost as much as people saying that it's they're the best team of all time when St George won 11 in a row. And people said there was no salary cap back then, but there also wasn't, like, they didn't go out and buy a premiership, St George. In fact, the rules back then, everyone had a job and you had to live in the district. For a lot of that 11 years, I don't think that was a rule for the whole 11 years, but for some of that 11 years, you had to live in the district. So that was an incredible effort by St George, and it won't be beaten. The book says it's called Never Before, Never Again. As far as the best grand final of all time, I don't know. I actually put it I might slip it into the top four behind 97 ARL, 89, and 2015. Some people said 2015 would have been a bad game, except for the extra time. So, best grand final of all time, love-hate. What do you think?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I'd put it in my top three. So I've gone one stronger than you. But to me, and I guess it's because of my emotional attachment with the mighty Raiders of 1989 and Tim Sheens, and just what it meant for rugby league, for the trophy, for the first time in nearly 100 years to leave Sydney. It was the beginning of the game's growth outside Sydney, and we can't undersell that. That was massive. I mean, when St George were winning those 11 straight premierships, there were 10, 12 teams in the comp, and they were all within walking distance of each other, basically. all the Sydney teams. There wasn't even a Cronulla, so they didn't have opposition. Their traditional rivals. There was no Illawarra, so there was no merger. It was totally different world. So it's very hard to compare eras, but certainly, as you say, never before, never again. That will go down, not just in rugby league, but there's not many sports where a team is dominated for 11 straight seasons. So, but who knows how long this Penrith juggernaut can keep going. I mean, they're automatically favourites for next year, and if I had to pick a team to put my life on at the moment, it'd be the Panthers for sure.
Yeah, now a lot of people, most people, 98% of people had a big rap on the referee, Adam G, but some people have criticised him because they're just miserable, but other people have said, well, he was refereed differently to a regular season game. Do you agree with that? What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, I was one of the ones who praised him, but the problem is when we start next season, we're going to go back to those head high tackles, those crusher tackles, will be penalised. In the grand final, they weren't penalised. And I guess if you're a Broncos fan more than anyone, because, a penalty here, a penalty there could have meant all the difference. And we saw that throughout the final series. So the NRL's got to get some form of consistency. This is what drives the fans mad. The fact that a crusher is penalised and put on report one game, next game, it's as if nothing happened. But overall, I thought G was great. And I see this as a start of a run of grand finals for him. I can see him doing a Bill Harrigan and becoming the game's #1 ref for, the next 10 years. I was that impressed with him. He really let it flow. He made some brave calls. So full marks to him.
As we're recording this, the news has just broken that Barry Ross, who was the original sideline eye, done a little bit of that myself. I think you have too, Tony. He was the godfather of sideline eyes, and the offsider of Rex Mossop has passed away. Just sad news. A guy who I've said on social media a couple of times, a guy who I watched as a kid every Sunday night. And then I started showing up in press boxes, and I was astounded. I remember the first time that he knew who I was. He called me by name. There's a guy off the TV when I was a kid, and he was always a lovely, lovely fellow to me.
Yeah, and I found him the same, and I was the same. I grew up with Rex and Barry, and then I got to know Barry. And one thing that I don't think has been mentioned much, he did a lot of good stuff for Men of League, now Family of League, which is for your Northern Hemisphere people. It's a charity run by just by former players, 4 former players who've fallen on hard times. And he wrote a lot of stories for their magazine, went out and visited sick players or ex-players. So, he'll be missed. Lovely man, Barry.
Now, we've had some international teams announced, and now I don't want to upset anyone at the NRL. I am going to use the NRL graphics. I'm going to give full credit to the NRL. The team graphics, I'm going to put them up. I'm going to edit them in here, but I guess sometimes they get very jumpy about it. So full credit to the NRL. Great graphics. Love the photos. Love the fonts. Love it. But the Australia team, obviously, interesting points at 2 great fullbacks, Kalen Ponga and Reece Walsh, aren't there, but that's because the captain's a fullback, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I likened it to when the England cricket team back in the 70s picked Mike Brearley as captain, and he was really there for his captaincy. He was past his best as a batsman, just as probably James Tedesco, this might sound a bit harsh to some people, but is past his best as a fullback. He didn't have the outstanding season we're used to from him. He did play some good games, but the Roosters as a whole underperformed during the season, and certainly Reece Walsh, Kalen Ponga, Dylan Edwards have overtaken him as far as form fullbacks go, but all 3 have missed out. So, yeah, it's just one of those unfortunate situations, but Teddy's hanging in there, and I'm sure he will play well in the tests. There's no doubt about that.
Now, while we have a look at the Samoa team, I want to point out that Katoni Staggs, he's new to the Australia team, but he's played for Tonga in the World Cup, and I guess Christian Wolf might be a little disappointed that he hasn't stuck with Tonga, but that's the rules as they are. That he can, he's got a tier 1 team of election, and he's got a tier 2 team of election, and that's meant to benefit the tier 2 countries. Also, the Hammer, he from the Dolphins. He's also previously played for Samoa. And Tino Fa'usumawali is another guy who some of the romantics out there were hoping would switch back to his island country. But after the way Australia played at the World Cup, not many people will be walking away from that team. So the Samoan team, perhaps a little bit light on. It would be. And also New Zealand have got a number of injuries too, Tony. I don't think we haven't seen a final squad for them yet. If we have, I'll edit that out. And just very quickly, there's also the 2 women's teams, and the Samoan team has or I think all but they've got mostly all but three maybe NRLW players. So that's fantastic to be. And also they've picked one domestic player as well. So imagine if the Samoan men's team, when they started, had started with almost all Sydney first graders back in the 90s. I think they probably might have won. If they wouldn't won a World Cup by now, they would have beaten Australia a few times if they'd been able to start at such a high level as the women's team are starting. So congratulations to them on picking such a strong team. And we're expecting Tonga to name their touring squad soon. And England, their captain, George Williams, as I speak, is threatened with a 1 week ban, is charged with a headlock style tackle at the weekend. And you got people saying, oh, England shouldn't suspend their own captain and all this sort of rubbish. The people who are laying the charges aren't Sean Wayne, thank God. I know there's lots of loopholes. But you don't need loopholes if the system's corrupt. So let's not take it a step further and have a corrupt system. So that's what I reckon anyway, Tony. But the internationals, we've got a week off in the Southern Hemisphere before they start. So you've got a week off this weekend, I think. What are you going to do?
Probably just take it easy, play a bit of touch football, hope I don't die, and just enjoy a rare weekend with family. Be nice.
Can this Australian team be beaten in the next month or so, or not?
I don't think so. It's pretty strong, isn't it? And it's not just the top 13. They're strong right through the squad. You mentioned the Jillaroos and Samoa. I think if we're looking for an upset, I think the Samoans will take the game to the Australians in the women's for sure. So that will be the interesting one.
Two huge semi-finals this weekend. I'd love to be in France on Friday night. St Helens, the world champs, still, despite what Penrith did at the weekend, off to Perpignan to take on Catalans. And I know you normally, because they're the only games this weekend, we'll get tips from both of us. But St Helens were pushed by Warrington at the weekend. It's a tough game to tip. Catalans have been impressive but vulnerable at times over the last month. It's one of the toughest games I've had to tip all year. What do you think, Tony? Catalans and St Helens down in Perpignan, which is a sellout.
Yeah, games like this, Steve, when it's going to be close, when you think it's going to be tight, I favour the home team, so I'll go Catalan.
And a very strong team for the back half of the year, Wigan, and they're taking on Willie Peters and Hull KR, which is a fantastic effort for Willie to get his team, to get his team so far in the season. One game from a grand final. Wigan at home, though. What do you think?
Yeah, and I can tell you on Willie Peters, I think there's a few NRL clubs will be knocking on his door as an assistant coach and possibly future first grade coach in the next couple of years. That's how impressed they've been with what he's done. But having said that, I'm going Wigan.
Yeah, I think Wigan is super impressive this year, and Hull KR have overachieved to an extent. But congratulations to Willie Peters. It'd be great to see a new team at Old Trafford, though, and certainly if Catalans get to Old Trafford, I'll be getting on the train and heading up there. Okay, that's about it for the show. Thanks to everyone for supporting us. We didn't do a show last week, but I thought it'd be good to talk about the grand final. And the next show will be over on my channel, which is Whiteline Fever TV. And the audio podcast is on Whiteline Fever Kicks, which is you just search on your podcast platform. And then Moley and Mascy will come back as an audio podcast next time. Okay, Tony, that was awesome. Enjoy your weekend off. I might head up to, if I can score an invite to the Man of Steel Award next week, I might go up and watch London Broncos on Sunday and crash on someone's couch for a couple of nights. We'll talk to you next week, Tony.